So am I the only one that's been looking around today going, it's just Tuesday? Is it really just Tuesday? Okay, welcome to our Microsoft Teams Binge-worthy webinar series. Today we are going to actually jump into Teams inside of Teams. My name is Joy Apple. I'm a modern workplace strategist with Pate Group. So glad you all have joined me and my cohort, Richard. We've both. Hey, how's your Tuesday going, Richard?
You know, it's Tuesday and we're still in the Tuesday quarantine mode, but everything's going well.
Yes, we are. And if you all haven't noticed by mine, well, you can't see Richard yet. Backgrounds are live in Teams. I'm excited. Yay. I joined my first meeting this morning and I had the option for a background. Woohoo! I think most of you have been with us enough that you know Richard and I work together with Pate Group. We are both modern workplace strategists. I have been in the Microsoft product and technology game for this year. We'll click up to 12 years, and there's nothing else I'd rather be doing. Richard, how long you been playing this game now, man?
Oh gosh, going on about 20-something years now, so dating myself a little bit, but also like Joy, I'm a modern workplace strategist here at Pate. And what that really means is we do all things Microsoft 365, really looking at it from not just the technical delivery, but also the overarching kind of business reason. What's the purpose of why you're leveraging these awesome tools in the cloud? And then helping you strategize to come up with a plan to be able to really achieve success with that. So that's what we do, and we love it. So that's why we wanted to bring this and other types of content from these webinar series to all of you. So what we wanted to do, just like we've been doing for the past few webinars now, is we wanted to start off with a couple of poll questions. The poll questions are really just to kind of help us get a little bit of a sense of who's who, and then get a sense of some information from you all that might help us tailor the content of the webinar delivery a little bit. So the one that we start off with every time is just the straightforward, you know, what are the job roles in the audience today? So if you would, there's a couple of different ways you can get to that. I'll just kind of flip back here. You could either whip out your phone and scan this QR code. It'll take you directly to the poll questions. Or if you look in the Q&A window, Stacy, our producer, has also dropped those in the Q&A poll as well. So we'll go ahead and just start getting a little bit of a sense of who's in the room at the moment here from the poll question. So let's do, not the right one. Let's go back here and see what we're getting here now in terms of responses. A little bit of slow refresh rate from forms at the moment.
I think you're on question 3.
On question 3. Oh, well, that would answer why. That would be the reason why. Go back to question 1. Nobody has been answering the question. Number 3.
That's what we call a user error.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. We're getting about 13 some responses at the moment now. Pretty common to the format. We've been getting a good number of folks that are self-profiling as IT pro. Thanks for joining. And a good number of people kind of mix between business users and some folks from management as well too. So again, if you want to just at any point in time, just go ahead and jump back in and respond to the poll. Would appreciate that. Okay, awesome, fantastic. Going back to slides here, poll question number 2 is one that really kind of lends itself towards talking about the use of Teams and how Teams can really be transformative in terms of how you communicate across the organization. So just general idea, it doesn't have to be exact, you know, about how many email messages do you receive on a daily basis from people inside the organization? So not necessarily thinking about the emails that you might receive from people outside the org, but really again, focusing on inside the org. So, you know, is it 10 or less? Is it, or fewer rather? Is it roughly around 25, 50 or more, or is it just way more than you could possibly count? So let's just kind of get a sense of what that looks like here. And from the responses that we're getting so far, it looks like that we get, you know, pretty decent mix of 25 in the 25-ish range, maybe 50 or more. I see that a few people have admitted that there's probably way more than you can count, and that's to be expected, quite honestly. So, okay, good. If you're getting fewer than 10, I'm wondering if it's those folks that have already embraced the use of Microsoft Teams. because again, that's something that we definitely like to advocate for, is transitioning your internal communications to using more Teams-based communications and less email. So, okay, good. Thank you for responding again. Feel free to jump in again on these at any point in time along the way. And then poll question number 3, which is probably the most important of them all today, is, you know, just want to know. Yeah, so who's guilty, everybody, okay? You know, so is Joe Exotic guilty? Is Carol Baskin actually guilty of one or more things? Are they both guilty? Or, you know, maybe you just have no clue. And so like what you talking about, Willis, would just like to get a sense of what you think the answer to that question would be based on your. So it seems like so far what you're talking about. Okay, all right. we can help inform you all. If any of you have been, you know, trying to pass the time with doing a little bit of binge TV watching, like some of us do, just to get away from all of the sheltering in. There's a show on Netflix called The Tiger King. You probably should just check it out and see if it's something you're interested in watching or not. Actually, I'll just kind of leave it at that. But for those of you that do know what you're talking about, yeah, I would say, you know, good combination between both of them. Carol Baskin, most likely, would say she's probably guilty. So again, yeah, The Tiger King on Netflix if you're interested at all. And by the way, feel entirely free to just kind of check it out and then decide, no, that's not for me. But we think that it's something to pass the time if you're interested in binge watching TV at this point.
And let's be clear, it is not quality television.
Oh,
all
no,
right, let's just
it's not.
That up.
Yeah, The Tiger King. It's not like The Lion King. It's not like you're not inviting your kids around the TV to watch that. That's a late night binging watching for adults. Yeah. So okay, all right. Well, thanks again for those responses there. And I think we'll just go ahead and pass off to Joy if you want to grab the screen, and then we'll get into the topic at hand.
Perfecto. I'm gonna pick a screen, any screen here. All right. So if you've been with us from the beginning of our webinar series, we kind of started with a tour of the left rail, and then we've been working our way down. We did leapfrog and do calendar ahead of Teams because that's the main way we're getting together these days is through meetings. But today we're going to put our toes in the water for Teams. And as Richard and I really started digging into this, it occurred to us that Teams is deep and wide. There is a lot of information behind that one little button for your team. So this will be more than one session. So there's no way we could do all of it today in a short period of time. So Teams, this is where we work with our, you know, pick your adjective of, well, improper noun of choice. Is it your group, your team, your functional area, your department, your business group, whatever makes the most sense. That's how teams break out. And teams can promote teamwork in a few very distinctive ways. So when I am working in my team, with my team, I am communicating and sharing content that has to do with a group effort of some sort. Maybe we're a functional area inside of HR, maybe we're the wellness team, or maybe your company's like mine and a lot of what you do day in and day out is project-based. So every client that we have, they get a team inside of Teams, and the people we're going to be doing the various aspects of that work, you know, we divide it up. But in that Teams where we communicate, and the reason we communicate in Teams rather than email is because everybody's already there. You know, it's super easy to have that conversation inside of Teams and nobody's excluded. Channels are how we organize our teams. For a project, it might be a scope of work or a phase of that project as a channel. Inside of a department team, it might be the different functional areas where you can chat all together there. And then each functional area might break out into a secured team. And then the different initiatives that you have, contracts, invoicing, might be channels. It's your topics within your team. Teams is searchable, and any content you share in Teams is going to be organized into the Files tab rather than buried in long email threads, which is one of my personal pet peeves with email. You know how you have your thread kind of grouped together and you have to keep clicking that little arrow to find where that paperclip is? Inside of Teams, it's in the Files tab. So it's a little easier to move around that way. There are two distinct types of teams. A team can either be public, which means anyone in the organization can join it. If it's a public team, in the upper right-hand corner, we'll look at this in just a minute, it will say org. Or if it's a private team with stricter security and permissions, users would have to be added by a team owner, and you'll see team up there in the corner. Let's go on to the next slide, and then we're going to actually hop into Teams here in just a minute. When we're talking about Teams, you're going to hear a couple of different terms, may or may not be new to you. Channels, posts, files. When you're inside of your team channels, you'll see wiki, you'll see add a tab. All those things make up your channel. Let's jump into Teams. If you've ever attended any of my other webinars or my training, you've probably learned that slides are great to have just for here and there, but pretty much I like to live inside of the actual product, platform, tool, app. All right, so I am in Project Excelsior. That's our demo team. Here underneath the name of the team, you'll see my channels. Every time a team is created, you automatically get the general channel. It's always there. That's where we can have general conversations for everyone on the team about the team itself in general. Then we can create channels to organize two things, our content and our communication. So on my project, if I am going in and I'm doing the deployment planning, if Richard wants to come and ask me a question about the deployment planning, he wouldn't do it in general, he would do it in the deployment planning channel. And when I'm ready to upload my content that has to do with deployment planning, I'm going to go to my Files tab. That is a default tab in every channel. Here I upload my stuff. I would not put my statement of work for the migration here because I'm organizing, and my organization is going to be dependent on the channels inside of the team. Fun fact, when I'm putting stuff inside of files in Teams, it's really going to SharePoint to be held on to. Teams is not in the file management business. It's in the making life easier for you business, right? So it gives us a place to get to our stuff. It gives us a place to easily upload content, and then SharePoint's doing the heavy lifting in the background. I get a wiki inside of every channel, and that's just a place for us, that's OneNote Lite. It's a place for us to put notes about this particular channel that anyone could come in and add stuff to, or read, or access. And then I have this plus sign. I added these guys up here. The plus sign lets me add a tab. It lets me put a resource in this channel so I can just click a button and get to things very easily. Maybe it's a form, maybe it's a poll like Richard did, and I want it to be easy for my team members to come in and access it. Maybe it's an Excel spreadsheet. Maybe it's, Richard, what's your favorite third-party app?
From, you mean the non-Microsoft related ones? Oh gosh, that's a tough choice, I would say.
Maybe SharePoint or something?
Yeah.
We have options. What is Taco? Hey Taco, we'll have to play with that later. Build stronger, happier teams. So maybe that's our favorite. Is today Tuesday? It's Taco Tuesday.
Yeah, that's a good too.
You can put links to your third-party apps too. We hope that it's something your IT department is aware of, that you use, and it's supported by the company. But if you use SurveyMonkey to do surveys for folks outside or even inside your organization, you could add a tab up to the top and make it really easy to get to that resource.
We have our first question. You ready?
I love it. Yes.
What are the benefits, use cases of a public team instead of having something more manageable and structured like a private team that can adapt as needed?
Awesome question. So, a couple of thoughts there, just off the top of my head. Our company is a little smaller. So we have, as you can see here in my navigation, a general channel for the PATE team. We use this for all team-based communication. Anyone in the company can come and go as we please. I can't imagine why anyone would leave it because it's really cool. So having a place for open communication would be one thing. We have several clients that have an IT team that's open for anyone in the organization to come in and just ask a general question for IT. It's not the help desk. So you have to manage that expectation. But it's a place right now in the midst of COVID-19 where I just need help getting started with something and IT can pitch in. It's not a ticket system. Though I do have a client I talked with yesterday and they're interested in pivoting their internal help desk process to Teams instead of email. So there are a couple of different things that could be. HR might have a public team where they can share out information. One thing to note, well, we'll just go ahead and jump to it now. We were going to talk about the different ways you can format your posts, which is your chat in Teams. So I'm going to come down here and click this little format button. I have options here. So in a public team, it might make sense. Instead of having it where everyone can reply, I could have it where only myself and people that have been designated as moderators could reply. So again, it becomes a broadcast platform. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I would just add a couple of thoughts on that question as well. So I think that, you know, what I try to encourage most customers to consider that are moving to Teams as a primary internal collaboration tool is, for the most part, if you feel like whatever a team of people are communicating about, sharing information about, has relevance to people across the organization, because, you know, we've got a lot of customers who, you know, their business is very much project-based, and so there's a need for being able to share and communicate across different departments and divisions within the organization based on a project. But if you feel like what a team's doing and communicating and collaborating about, again, has relevance across the business, then I would encourage you to consider it being a public team, because again, that eases the friction for others across the business to then have visibility into that team. Again, as Joy had mentioned, kind of to come and go and participate in the team as needed, versus private-based teams, which again, there's use cases, maybe the more obvious use case for those teams that have a need to be able to communicate with only the people that are members of the team. I feel like private teams, thinking about it, it is a paradigm shift, it is a mindset shift, but I think that it's something that, again, it can be really useful for organizations to think about opening up those communications and the information that's stored there to others. And so that's the other way that I like to think about the reason why to set up a team to be public versus private.
And you can almost think of it as another way of fulfilling your intranet needs. You know, Teams and SharePoint better together. So on our communication sites and SharePoint Online, you have that company public content, and you can reiterate that in a company public team.
Which kind of leads into the question, how do files show up in SharePoint? Which I believe we covered a little bit in the last episode.
Yeah, but we can absolutely, let's look at it. So I have files here. I don't think I've prepped and opened this in a new window, but thinking about it. There we go. So this is actually a window into a deployment planning folder inside of SharePoint. So I'm going to click on this, and it went away. I'm going to click on this fun little button here that says Open in SharePoint. I feel like I should have a drum roll. Okay, because it's thinking about it. Seems like I have some slow bandwidth today. Now I'm actually on my SharePoint site. I'm still in my deployment planning folder. If if I use my breadcrumb right here, every channel in Teams is a folder in that Teams connected documents library. I have some really slow bandwidth going on here. Yay, there it is, through the magic of the internet. So these are actually my channels inside of my team. So my channel is organizing my content and my conversation. If we were all face-to-face, I would say, show of hands, who has a group text going on with their family right now? Probably all of us, somehow, some way. You know how those group texts, like somebody will come up and respond to something from 3 days ago, and it's chaos sometimes. If we didn't use channels inside of our teams, teams would turn into that group text chaos. We're organizing where we talk about stuff and where we put stuff. So if I uploaded a file into onboarding flow, within seconds, I could go into Teams, open up the onboarding flow channel, that file would be there. Very clean, very nice experience. And we're actually going to be, and Richard, I think this cements it, we're going to do a deep dive on files in Teams in an upcoming webinar.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a whole lot to uncover around files and sharing files and managing files. That yeah, we're going to do that in a whole separate webinar.
Excellent. Do you want to continue on? I have another question that just popped up.
What you got?
Okay. Are public teams advertised somewhere in Teams, or does a user need to know about it regarding the name or a code to join?
Yeah, see, we debated whether or not we were going to show this today.
Yeah. It's a good question. Yeah, it's a good question. So we could either cover it briefly and then deep dive further in the next webinar. Whatever you think makes sense there, Joy.
I don't have a clean way to demo that right now, just because since this is our live Teams, there's some confidential information that would show up. Sure, but I will say, I won't click it, but if a user knows, so this requires some communication from us to tell them, they could go to join or create a team. If they don't have the right to create a team, guess what they can't do? Can't create a team. But on that join screen that opens, the public teams that they haven't joined yet will show up. They can also search on that page as well. And I'm actually working, shoot, and you're going to make me work for this now. I'm actually have an idea of a way to promote those public teams through SharePoint. So now I'm going to actually have to go and record that video, which I've been meaning to do for a week. So stay tuned, more to come, because I think it's a clever idea. So Richard asked me here, is the customer available to review the roadmap next week? And I responded, said, yep, let me get you the link. So when you're in files, you can get the link to this content because it's all online. So I can take and post it back to the roadmap to that. So I'm going to do that here. That's the wrong thing, but that's okay. I'm still going to copy the link. So here's the link. I'll warn you, if you're like me, you've been around the world for a while, these URLs are ugly. I'm sorry, but they really are. So notice my name is bold here because he @mentioned me. So I'm going to @mention him. So there's Richard. Paste that link in. So now he has the roadmap. I'm going to hit enter to send this. So this @mention here means that an individual has been @mentioned. He's going to get a notification that he has been mentioned, just like I got one, and that's probably it right there, saying that I was mentioned. You can also @mention the whole team. So let's remember, the team is our security. Everyone in Project Excelsior has access to all of these standard channels. This PM one's a little different. We'll talk about that later. So everyone gets a notification according to how they choose to get notifications. I could even @mention the deployment planning channel. So let's talk about that. When I @mention the team, everyone on the team gets a notification about it. If I mention the channel, everyone in the team gets a notification about it. But what that does is it provides context. Richard and I had this conversation earlier. It's like, how many times do you get an email where the subject's similar to 50 other emails that you have? So you have to go open it, get halfway through and go, oh, this isn't that important one that I thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's not context because email is always coming at us from every direction. But if I mention the channel and say, hey, deployment planning kickoff next Monday, for my guys that are mostly interested in the implementation or training, they see the context of deployment planning and go, oh, that's not super important for me right now. I'm glad the project's kicking off, but it's not critical for me to respond. There's context there. So that's important to note, that the way we use the app mentions can inform people of the priority for them, if it's something they're super involved in, or, oh, good to know, not my piece of this, so I can wait till later.
A notification where? I think there's a little confusion on where will we see notifications.
So that's going to depend on you. So I'm going to click on my face here inside of Teams, and I'm going to go to Settings, or I'm going to misclick. I'm going to go to Settings. Inside of Settings, you have the ability to manage what you get a notification for. So you'll see here in mine, if I am mentioned personally that at Joy T Apple, I get a banner, which is that little pop-up from the bottom right-hand corner of my computer screen, and Teams is going to send an email to me. Hey, you were mentioned. Somebody said your name. I could change that if I wanted to. Only show in feed means your activity feed, the little bell up here in the upper left-hand corner. Banner would just be that little pop-up. I think they used to call it a toast, right? Just that little, a little toast that pops. I like that better, but I like foods, so that's probably why. Channel mentions. I want a banner and an email. Tell me, I want to make sure I'm not missing that there's been a mention somewhere. And the same for Teams. But again, you can actually turn off your team notification. You could only show it in your feed, or you could just get that little banner that pops up for what, 2-3 seconds, and then it's gone. Same for chat. Likes and reactions. Okay, on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, oh, I love it when I know somebody liked something I posted. In Teams, okay, I'm telling you, you don't have to like it. So I've turned that off. I don't need a notification for it. So I have lots of options. I will say the coolest one ever is the notification that a meeting has started. I love it. Yeah. It's really great. Like, oh, I better get over there. The meeting started without me. Now that said, I'm going to close this down. Let's say in Project Excelsior, it is really important to make sure I get notifications for this channel, the deployment planning. So I can come in and manage the notifications for that. I'm just going to save that. But maybe I'm not part of the implementation and migration this time. Richard's going to handle that piece. So I can go to channel notifications for that and turn it off. Why would you turn it off? Because if you're not interested in it and you don't really need all those notifications, it just becomes noise. And I am not a parent, but Richard, how do you handle it when you hear dad, 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 dad? Right? You start to ignore it.
It does start to become a little overwhelming after a while, it's true. So
it's background noise. We don't want Teams to become background noise.
Yeah, I would agree. As far as a pro tip goes, that one that Joy is showing there around customizing your channel notifications to match what is relevant to you, hugely important. So if you are a member of more than one team and those teams have a number of channels in them, spend a little bit of time, and you can always go and change them every time you want, but spend a little bit of time going into the channel notifications for those individual channels and set them up in a way that makes sense for you. So if you just are the type that you want to get notified all the time, and then that becomes just way too much noise, like Joy said, then you can go in and tweak that.
Yep. Don't let it annoy you. Now, some things have to annoy you because it is your job, right? If it weren't annoying, sometimes it would be a hobby. So, you know, but again, and that applies to, what are we seeing here? A test public team. I'm not really on that team. So I could even hide it and just get it out of my view and unclutter it. And if someone mentions me, then I'll come see what they need. But otherwise, it doesn't need to be in my way. You can even pin the channels that are most important to you at the top. So maybe the training, this might be super important, and I could pin that up here to the top. So it's in, I call it my easy access.
Super useful.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just commenting that that's super useful, and I love doing that as well, pinning channels up top. And again, that's something you can do at any time. So you can pin them and unpin them, and as you're kind of determining that some are more relevant to you ongoing in this particular week, then you can pin them and unpin them. So it's really helpful to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And hide the ones. So one thing, Richard, again, we were talking earlier, I can't stand that my teams aren't in alphabetical order. One reason they're not is because I can move these around in order of priority for me. So your teams here aren't in alphabetical order, but if you hide them, they all will show up under your hidden teams. And this is actually all of my client teams are hidden right now, just to, you know, for privacy. They're alphabetized when I hide them. So I live with all of my client teams hidden, and they're in alphabetical order. So I unhide it, and boom, I can get right to the one I want to go to. So that's kind of how I live. Also because I do a lot of demos, it just doesn't make sense for me to hide and unhide daily. So no, you can control that. You can control what you see. If certain channels are super important and others aren't, you can hide, you can show, and you can really control what's in front of your face all the time.
We have a question. Are notification settings global across all devices, or only for that specific device that you're making the notifications to?
There's a little bit of individual management here, and a big one I'll let you know about. By default, your mobile app will not notify you on things if you're active on your desktop. That was a big deal for me. I like to dual wield. I will have Teams open over here on this guy, and I'll be working and have Teams open over here and be working. And I wasn't getting some notifications, so that was messing with me. So I went into Teams mobile app and said, always give me my notifications over here, regardless of my activity on my desktop. So there are some places you can refine it. By and large, it will be a global. So if I say I want team notifications on my desktop, I'm going to get the team notifications on my mobile device. And we are going to do, we're going to do a mobile one too, I think. We're going to do a mobile Teams webinar.
Yes, we are.
I'm so excited about all the stuff we're getting to do. So I think, I know we're about at time. There is so much information here. But we do want to point out some super important stuff when you're making your conversations and your posts in Teams. When you come in to do a new conversation, you could choose to make that an announcement. If you do announcement, you'll actually get a headline area. You could put a custom image on your background, really get people's attention. And you still have the option, everyone can reply, or only you and anyone if they've been designated as a moderator. And I could even post in multiple channels. So if I click that, I can choose other channels in this team, or I could even post in other teams as well. You have a lot of control here to make sure you're not having to duplicate effort across multiple teams if that's where you live, kind of in multiple areas of the organization. In Teams, down below, it's hidden. So if you're in chat, there's that little call button so you can call someone immediately in the upper right-hand corner. But if you're in this Teams window, they do hide it at the very bottom. There's that little video camera. And if you click Meet Now, it'll start calling everyone that's part of this team for an ad hoc meeting. So you do want to know that's there. It's a really cool thing, as is praise. We work hard. We've been working really hard lately, trying to get used to this whole work from home, right? We've really had to pivot. Our attention is pulled in multiple directions. And I'll be honest, even just the stress of knowing we're under this pandemic, it impacts you in a lot of different ways. So if you see someone that's really coming in, they've shown some problem solving skills, or they're keeping the morale up for the team. I'm going to give this to Allison. What are we going to say? Great job. I can preview it. And we're going to send her praise for being so optimistic. So that's a fun app. It's great. Let me trash this guy. It's in the way. All right. Yes, I really do want to discard. What do you want to bet updates have pushed? And that's why my Teams is running so slow.
A question, can everyone be assigned as a moderator of a team?
Okay, can everyone be assigned? I've never tried to assign everyone. Let's find out. If you do that, then honestly, it's probably going to add about the same as if no one were a moderator, because then everyone goes back to having that same level of permission. Let me see. Okay, it's been a minute. Moderators. Is it under permissions, Richard?
Yeah, I was just trying to think of the same thing, to the same question. So that's a good one. We got a little stumped on that at the moment, but we'll find that answer. And
we'll figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
Check us out on Teams, and Teams. Hey, this is Teams on Twitter, and we will give you the answer to that. You can tell we don't use that feature. Huh. If anyone out there and watching the webinar knows, just drop it in here. Channels. Members. Any other questions out there? Tags. This is pretty new too. Richard and I were just saying we need to test out the far-reaching implications of tags.
Yes, absolutely.
So this person who was wondering about the moderator, they have a team where they meet and they need to have the ability to share and add and notify everyone else at any time.
They need to be able to share, notify everyone at once in the team or everyone in the organization?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I think in the team. It says we have a team where we meet and we have to have the ability to share and add and notify everyone else at any time.
So off the top of my head, if it is just in that one team, at mentioning the whole team would be the way to do that. If people have turned off team notifications, that could impact that. So, but then it's time for a governance conversation.
It was definitely in the team.
Okay, cool. So the at mention should cover that, but yeah, then it's time to reiterate to everyone, you need to have your at mentions on for your team at the very least.
Right, we're almost coming up at the quarter hour.
Okay.
Yeah, so to loop back just so that it's in the recording, I did just poke at where the moderation setup was. So if you went back to a team, it is on a channel basis, which kind of makes sense. But if you go back to any of those teams and then choose the ... more options on the team and go into manage channel.
Manage channel.
Yeah, it's going to be there where you can say, and actually you will, it's interesting because that one looks different than the one I'm looking at. I don't know. This is a team that you set up, I assume, that you're the owner
I
of.
did set up this team, and it is an org-wide team.
Maybe that's why then, because it's an org-wide team. But again, we can follow up with you all with some additional information on that. But if you have other team channels where you can turn channel moderation on or off, you can set up others as moderators, but you're effectively adding them as team owners, it looks like, when you do that. So anyway, yeah, so suffice to say, that's probably not the right way that you would want to structure the membership of your teams. But again, we'll look and see if we can come up with some kind of best practices that we can recommend for that situation there for you. Okay? Yeah.
So closing food for thought. I always say I should put somewhere on this slide that this is an opinion, but just because it's an opinion doesn't mean it's wrong. We do feel that Teams has become the place that's just better for internal communication because messages to the team are to everyone that's on that team, that's working on that project, that task. If you've ever had the pleasure of sending out an email and you put everyone you can think of on the to line, you hit send, and then as soon as it sends out, you go, oh crap. You go to your sent items and you forwarded it to that one person you left off, right? And that becomes what they call that forked email thread. So that one person responds over here, but everybody else is responding over there. And it's just, no one can see the whole story of what's happening except for you, because now you're monkey in the middle. But if we just take that conversation and put it in Teams, everybody's there, right? We can't inadvertently leave someone off because everyone's in the team. Those one-off threads are gone. Let's say we're working and a client or an external person or someone from another department sends us critical information. I can then take that email and forward it to the appropriate channel where it belongs. Maybe it's general. So every channel in your team gets an email address. So I can absolutely forward email that comes into me over to the team so the whole team can see it, right? We really raise the visibility of communication inside of the organization by standardizing around Teams for that internal communication. Close that.
Yeah, we do that a lot, but forwarding emails into channels here at Pate, because oftentimes we have a question coming from a customer and we want to be able to socialize that question with the broader Pate team to see if we can get some additional input. And so rather than just perpetuating the continual email forwarding, and adding more people onto that email thread, we'll just, standard practice is we'll forward that into a channel that is going to be relevant for the type of question that question is. And then we'll continue having conversations and dialogue about that topic inside of Teams. Then at that point, whenever we kind of get to what the answer is that we want to respond back to the email, then we'll obviously go back into the email thread and do a reply with some additional information. But the ongoing internal dialogue, we definitely use that forward into Teams. It's the coolest way to do that.
Yep, absolutely. And then one more, just a little breakdown of just ways to win with Teams, right? If you need to get everyone's attention, it applies to everyone on the team. @mention the team. @mention just the channel so that when the team sees that come in, they know the topic of it. What's it about? What's it relate to? Organize those channels and your teams in a way that makes sense for you. When you pin, when you organize, that's just your view. You're not doing that for everyone. And remember, your channel is what's organizing both of your conversations and your content. And the whole team has equal access to any of those standard channels. And we will be diving into private channels in the not too distant future. Stay tuned.
Yeah. Great job. So, again, as Joy mentioned, we're kind of splitting this into two parts. We wanted to spend today really kind of going over some of these, what we think are some really useful ways that everybody can leverage capabilities inside of Teams. So part 2 on Thursday, if you haven't signed up for that yet, please do. We were going to go ahead and kind of unpack more of the configuration side for Teams. So specifically, if you have a need to create your own team and you have the ability to do that in your organization, what kind of things do you need to know now as the owner of that team? That's the type of content that we're going to cover over on Thursday. So hope you'll register and join us for that as well. Fantastic. Well, I think we're definitely past the time that we had allocated for this webinar, but thanks again, everybody, for joining us. Again, if you have questions, please continue to hit us up with those. You can either connect with us on Twitter. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn. The QR codes that you see here on the screen actually will take you to our LinkedIn profile, so please do connect with us there as well. And then beyond this, again, please register for Thursday's webinar. We look forward to talking to you all then.
Yep, thanks so much. And any questions you didn't get to ask during this, feel free to hit us up on Twitter.
Please do. Okay, have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.